Welcome to In Our Town, Conversations with Springfieldians Making a Difference. I'm your host, Tom Carlson, publisher of the Springfield Daily Citizen. If you'd like to comment on this episode, our email is inourtown@sgfcitizen.org. We'd love to hear from you. My guest today is a lifelong Cardinal baseball fan. Dan Reiter started as an account executive with the Cardinals when they came to Springfield in 2005. Now, 20 years later, he is vice president and general manager for the Springfield Cardinals. And it's more than just a job for him. It's a big part of his life. If there's a major event in Dan's family life, it's going to happen at Hammons Field. He not only got engaged and had his wedding rehearsal dinner at the stadium, his family has celebrated many major events at the ballpark. The last few years haven't been easy, though. After a long and tortuous negotiations with the city of Springfield, the St. Louis Cardinals, and the John Q. Hammons Trust that was played out in bankruptcy court, all the parties eventually came to an agreement that will keep the Cardinals in Springfield and improve Hammons Field. Dan is the man in charge of making that happen. He joins me today to talk about where we have been and what's in store for fans as the season opens this month. He says his job is twofold: to make sure the Springfield Cardinals are advocates for a great community, and to do everything the organization can do to help the St. Louis Cardinals win the next World Championship. Dan, welcome to In Our Town.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, you're welcome. As I said in the intro, you're a big Cardinals fan. How did that come about?
You know, my dad's family's from just south of St. Louis in Festus, Missouri.
Oh, I know where that is.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's when you're born in that area, you don't have an option. And you're really kind of born into it. So I only remember being a Cardinals fan my entire life. I can remember the excitement of going to Busch Stadium for the first time, and I just grew up loving baseball, loving the Cardinals. So really, it's almost a small part of my identity. It's been there so long.
Well, you may have grown up in Festus, but you've been at Springfield a long time. Went to Missouri State, I think.
A little bit of A, a little bit of B there. So,
okay.
No, our family, my dad's family is from Festus. My parents, though, they actually met in Springfield. So they were working in Springfield. They moved to Tulsa, which is where they had me. After Tulsa, we went to Sedalia, Missouri, home of the State Fair. So from 3rd through 7th grade, I was out there rocking all the rides at the Missouri State Fair. But our family moved to Springfield when I was going into 8th grade. I moved here, went to St. Agnes, and then graduated from Springfield Catholic High School. And my family's still here. But college, I went away to Mizzou. I loved my time at Mizzou. Still had some great friends, great things I'm still proud of from my time there. And then I got lucky with the timing, and right when I was wanting to enter the workforce was right at the time the rumors of the Springfield Cardinals were starting up.
I attended a Rotary meeting where you were the guest speaker, and as I recall, you just barely slipped in and got a job initially, right?
Oh, I was so lucky. I mean, there's no other way to say it. When the team got started, you go back, and when this was announced in 2004, I mean, this was huge for the community. People were so excited, and of course, they were getting applications everywhere. So they said they got 300 applications to hire 5 sales reps.
Wow.
But I was not one of the top 5. But fortunately, I had made a really good impression on the president of the St. Louis Cardinals because I had won a TV contest. And because of that, I ended up being the bonus hire. So I was the throw-in hire number 6 on the sales staff that first year. And
so you were kind of like the old commercial with Avis, we're second, but we try harder.
Yeah. And well, it's a lot nicer way of saying it. I always say it pissed me off. Just again, I think that's what you want in a salesperson, someone who's competitive and wants to be the best.
Yeah.
And it kind of made me angry. I wasn't one of their top 5 selections. And I think those first few years, it helped motivate me. And I'm okay with that. I think it worked out. But yeah, I kind of came in with a little chip on my shoulder that I wanted to be considered one of the top hires.
Let's just to give some background and context. The deal that was struck, and as I said in the intro, you had lots of moving parts in this thing. Mr. Hammons had made a deal with a New York investor that pulled the Hammons Field into it. He dies, the trust goes in bankruptcy. The city's the landlord, but not all the land is owned by the city. And then you have the Cardinals that are saying if improvements aren't made, they might not be around here forever. What was going on in your head during all that time?
It was tough. I mean, first of all, I think that's kind of the first thing I'll acknowledge. It was not easy. It was difficult. It was tough. What was going on in my head, I kind of kept coming back to one line, and that was to maximize your controllables. And the reason that centered me was that there was a lot there we couldn't control. And we would sit in staff meetings and we'd brainstorm, and it'd be like, well, if this would change, we could do this. And everyone kind of got really negative because of the stuff that was going on with parking, lack of improvements, and it was hard. And one day
you had that
stop.
big parking lot right across, and what were they charging? $20?
It's when they took over, it was $7, and it got up to $20, and that was in a short window.
That wasn't helping your attendance.
No,
was it?
I mean, that's more expensive than big league parking in some cities.
Yeah,
there were so many negative things going on, though. It made us just stop and say stop. Like, we can't do this. We can't control it. We can't focus on it. So really, when it came to the business operation side of it, we really kind of adopted a mentality of maximize your controllables. And it helped us look at what we could control and then how could we make a better experience by doing it. So, it ended up being a good exercise to go through because it challenged the way we did a lot of things. In the background, that's where the staff had no idea what I was working on. And between the, COVID and the background proposals you have to look at when it comes to staffing, when it comes to when are you actually going to get to play baseball. For a while we didn't know when we were going to play baseball. Then you don't know who's going to be the landlord. How are you going to get these requirements? There was a lot of negative in the background. And so for me, I kind of had to compartmentalize it because when I showed up to work, the staff needed to see me ready to work, not ready to cry.
Did you think there was a real chance the Cardinals might leave?
Yes and no at the same time. And I don't think it was ever anyone's intention. I don't think
they wanted to stay here if we could work it out.
Absolutely. And that's the part where it's like, I think that was kind of what made me feel a little better is I knew that the Cardinals wanted to be in Springfield. What I was more afraid of was that the timing of the resolution is that if the timing didn't work, then the Cardinals would lose control. And right now, Major League Baseball, they entered into a new agreement with every single minor league team called the Professional Development League. And when everyone refers to it as PDL, and every team made an agreement with Major League Baseball that your stadium is going to have certain features, certain amenities, things for player safety. And my biggest fear was that when we signed that document, that if we didn't get to a stadium resolution, that we would lose the control of deciding our future. And ultimately, if Major League Baseball felt that it wasn't correct, Major League Baseball would have had the ability to relocate, to work on going to a different community. And I think you kind of see nationally, there are absolutely cities willing to build new stadiums to get teams.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about just kind of what I will call the global arrangement here, and tell me if I've got this right or not. I think we've got at least 3 organizations that all have to come to agreement. You have the St. Louis Cardinals, you've got the city of Springfield's the landlord, and then you have the, what's it called? Diamond.
Our ownership group is Diamond Baseball Holdings now.
Thank you, Diamond Baseball. And they actually, that's who you work for.
Correct, yeah.
And for the listeners, how does this work? Do the players that are part of the minor league baseball team, are they under contract with Diamond or are they under contract with the Cardinals? How does that work?
Yeah, they're players of the St. Louis Cardinals. So when you look across minor league baseball, any minor league team you go to, all of the player personnel, the player decisions, who's on the roster, those all come from the big league affiliates. The way I try to describe it to people simply is that we lease the players, is that there's an agreement between the St. Louis Cardinals as the parent club and then us as the AA affiliate that says, hey, we're going to provide the players, but then we have to provide certain things like transportation, the safe stadium, hotels on the road, uniforms. So really there's an agreement between the two parties to say, hey, here's how the player side is going to work. And that was one of those changes with Major League Baseball, that some of those contracts were only 2 years. And when you think about a city, you could have different big league clubs in there every 2 years, which makes it really difficult on how to spend money, how to be able to do things, how to grow relationships. So the new one is to try to keep the same parent club in the same minor league city for 10 years. So that's
what's
the new
Cardinals
system.
agreement about how long they are obligated to have other players here in Springfield at this point.
Yeah, that was the contract I was just talking about that was 10 years. So there's 8 more years of that. But that's also where St. Louis, they love Springfield. And their ownership group made it very clear, to all of us, they love Springfield. They want the team here. They want us to thrive here. They know there's such a passionate Cardinals fan base. When it got time to sell it to Diamond Baseball Holdings, the reason why was that the Cardinals are protected by Major League Baseball. And before that change at the end of 2020, they really didn't have a protection. So that's why it made sense to own their own minor league club. But now that there's protection, they kind of have the best of both worlds.
And so Diamond Baseball, which is your boss essentially,
yes,
they have a 15-year lease on the ballpark.
Correct.
Right. And part of that lease is that Diamond Baseball pays, I think, $650,000 a year. But then that money, at the end of the day, ends up going back in for improvements at the baseball park. Is that how it works?
Yeah, the working with the city on the lease was awesome because we both wanted each other to succeed. And they know that they need the club to be successful financially, but we also know that we need a good stadium. And so really there was as good of good faith negotiation as you could have trying to come up with that lease to make sure that there was a path to improvements of the stadium, getting up to the par. And so that's where we came up with the way that we have the lease, and the financial side of it is that we are still paying rent. Part of that rent is essentially helping to fund Missouri State University being able to play there. So it's kind of a reimbursement for all that our staff has to do to keep the stadium and the field running year-round. So, and the reason part of that is it's really for Missouri State's portion. Now, the other part goes into the capital improvements. And as our lease rate goes up, where it actually goes up is in those capital improvements. Because when you think of a stadium that's already, 21 years old, and then you add on another 14 years, there's a lot of work that goes into maintenance. There's a lot of work that's going to have to go into, putting up a new video board in a few years, of having to replace the entire field just because of the way that the drainage systems work. So really, it was a great partnership between the Cardinals and the city because we both want each other to succeed. And I can't say enough great things about the city, especially on their initiative of quality of place. I love what this community is doing right now.
Well, just a side editorial comment, it would have been disastrous once we had the Springfield Cardinals in Springfield to have ever lost them. I can't imagine that it would have been the same experience if we were bringing in Arizona Diamondbacks, or something like that. But talk about, what's the arrangement with Missouri State? They do pay to use the facility, don't they?
They do. First, I want to add one ancillary comment. One of my favorite comments when everything was going on with the bankruptcy and then also going on with the city buying the stadium, one of my favorite comments was actually someone who said, "I don't like baseball at all, but you're crazy if you don't realize it's catastrophic if the Cardinals would leave downtown." And to me, I thought that was really neat to see someone have the perspective is that just because they didn't like it, they also realized it was good for the community. And I applaud anyone that can think like that. That's a good train of thinking. As far as the relationship with Missouri State University, both us and MSU have a lease with the city. The lease kind of outlines, who's what, and really it kind of makes us the primary person in charge of the stadium, of the field. There's like essentially an order of here's Cardinals games, then there's MSU games, then the city has a chance to do 2 events a year, then the Cardinals need to do special events. So it's very clear, like back and forth on who's responsible for what. And I think that's one of the things that we saw from the previous landlord relationship is lay it out clearly. Like lay it out so everyone knows what's going on. Missouri State, they have a lease that's their deal, and they had a deal to kind of come up with it. And then we have our deal. Right. And people ask us, a lot like, well, why don't you do this? Why doesn't MSU do this? And the answer is that we have a lease for a reason to tell us who's doing what.
Well, so probably getting down in the weeds more than I should. I guess it's my legal background. But so are you like the master tenant for the whole facility, and then you sublease part of it to, say, for Missouri State for part of the year, so there's one person in control of the whole thing?
So we would be the ones in control of it because the landlords kind of granted us those rights where it says you have to take care of it all. So that's granted us. But that's also why our rent payment is much higher. So we pay much more. But when Missouri State pays money for their lease, it doesn't go to us. It actually does go to the landlord, which is the city. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the equation. Obviously when they were going to buy a stadium, the city's running a lot of numbers. And that was a part of the equation, is that we would be the primary tenant. We're putting in the most. We have a funding to make sure that there's a chance for renovations, improvements, maintenance. And then a part of it, essentially for the note, is Missouri State's also paying. So they kind of have that can go straight to the price they had to purchase the stadium for. It's a lot of movement. It's between the different ownerships. The player side is different than the business side, is different than the landlord side, is different from the Missouri State side. But honestly, I think that's one of the parts I love about it. I love people. I love relationships. And I've kind of realized that with my personality style, if I only had one focus, I think I'd probably go crazy. So the ability to juggle and have so many relationships, it's fun for me. It's very fun.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Hi, I'm Rance Berger. I'm the managing editor of the Springfield Daily Citizen. I've been a Missouri journalist for about 18 years now. I've worked a total of 8 different jobs in 5 different places, but it's all been in Missouri. The hardest part of my job is really finding time to give all of our stories the love that they deserve. We have such a great group of reporters. When they work that hard, I want to be able to put that much work back into their stories to make them even better. The most rewarding part of my job is just being as plugged into what life is here in Springfield, Missouri. I get to know everything that's going on in government, in business, in education. I like living in Springfield because it's never boring, there's always something to do, and there's a wide variety of experiences available. You just have to be willing to put yourself out there a little bit and go look for them.
The company you work for, Diamond Baseball Holdings, they're no small outfit. What, they own 30 ballparks or run 30 ballparks?
Yeah, they're exciting.
They bring a lot of professionalism to the table.
Yeah, and in a short time period, too. Whenever there was a new agreement between Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball, there was a group that kind of realized there's a massive opportunity, and they jumped in. So right out of the gate in 2021, they bought 10 minor league teams and became the largest owner in minor league history in year one. And that was 2021. And now leading up to the 2024 season, they own 25% of all of minor league baseball teams. And it's really awesome to be a part of an industry leader. We go to the winter meetings and you're sharing ideas. And in a very short time period, you have other teams looking to them saying, well, what is Diamond Baseball going to do? Because they're wanting to invest in technology. They're wanting to look at, scale. And what they're doing, they're bringing more technology and capabilities to us as a single organization than we've ever had. And it's exciting to kind of be cutting edge and to want to grow fast. And that's the part of me is like, I will always love baseball. Like I said, it's a part of my DNA being a Cardinals fan. But I love the business side of it.
Let's jump in there, because I quoted something you'd said in another venue about your job is to make it a great community asset, but also to help the Cardinals win another World Series. So unpack that for us, because at the end of the day, you're running the thing and it needs to make some money.
Yeah.
And so what's your strategy here?
I don't hide that from people at all. I mean, I tell people people want things for free. I don't blame them for asking, but I tell them, like, if I don't make money, I lose my job. It's like my mom and dad, they pay for their tickets, because if we don't make money, then they try to find a city where they will make money. And I don't hide that, because the other part is when the stadium's full, it's more fun. When downtown is full, it's thriving. Sure. And I think that's the part. Sometimes people get this like, oh, if the business is making money, it's bad. And I disagree. I think that when we're a packed house, it's good for downtown. It's good for the community. It's good for the energy. But it's also good for my job. So you're going to be
doing some new things. You're going to be talking about concert now. And who's going to be the first headline act here?
It's going to be amazing. It's amazing the way stars can align. And so Adam Wainwright, he's won 200 games all with the St. Louis Cardinals. He'll definitely definitely be a Cardinal Hall of Famer, might be a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer. But he announced during his last season in 2023 that he was going to become a performing artist. And so he really is diving into that career right now. He performed at the Grand Ole Opry. He had his first album that just got released. So the way the stars aligned is
that's a great guy to start with.
It's amazing, just the tie-in. And I think this area embraces country music, but they definitely embrace the Cardinals. And I kind of feel like it's an iconic moment in our franchise. I think it's hard to figure out how to have a better fit than a Cardinal legend being your first concert.
Well, there's never been a concert, has there?
There hasn't.
At the Hammons Field.
But I'll give you a little background, this little funny story about it. But he did a rehab start here in April 25th, 2023. And when he got done pitching, I walked in the clubhouse and I'm talking to him. And I said, hey, I didn't want to talk to you beforehand, but I've got one big ask of you. And he just looks at me. He's like, oh, boy, what is it? Because a guy like that, he's asked for a lot of things.
I'm sure that's right.
And I was like, well, what I want to ask you, it's like our city just bought our stadium, and we've never been able to have concerts. I know you're going to start becoming an artist next year. Would you consider being our first ever concert? And he just lit up. And he was so excited. He goes, you understand, like, I'll be more excited about this than you will. I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to be pretty excited about it. But this has literally been in the making since he rehabbed here for the Cardinals in 2023. Almost a full year that we got to announce it. And I think having him as our first show on Friday, May 31st, I think there's unbelievable synergy and excitement and fun. And it's also not just cool for that moment, but it's also a preview to what it could be.
Right.
Can we have 2 concerts a year? Can we have 5 concerts a year? And we're going to learn a lot from the first one. And I tell people bluntly, because I'm kind of a blunt person, that I don't care if you don't like country music. I don't care if you don't like Adam Wainwright. You better buy tickets for the first show. And the reason,
it'll be a historic event.
It's historic, but we also have to prove that our community is going to embrace it. And artists, they don't want to play in front of empty venues. A tour promoter, they don't want to go somewhere they're going to lose money. We've got to show that we're going to be able to jump in and do it. And
I'm kind of interested in just the mechanics of all that, or the logistics. So you got a baseball team that's going to be playing there probably about every week. And how does you move everything in and get everything out without tearing the field up?
So we're trying this. We actually have a 2-week window, and it's one of only 2 times this happens this year where we have no games for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And so we're doing it on week 1 so that if something does go bad, and I really hope it doesn't, but if something goes bad, that we've got a full week to fix it. And I think that's kind of where we landed on this date, was that we were trying to be safe with our first one.
Yeah.
And we're going to learn. We're ordering field decking. The City of Springfield and Hatch Foundation are our 2 partners. And what's really awesome about both of those entities is that they don't want this just to be a one-time concert. They share that vision of, let's make this an amazing community asset multiple times a year.
What kind of other special events might you have there in future years, you think?
I think we're open. I mean, there's a new concept where they're going to baseball fields during the winter, and they're setting up like a winter wonderland with lights and ice skating.
Oh my!
And I think that's something that you look at. I think obviously concerts is the big one, but even from concerts is the idea of festivals. Is why not have it multiple days of it?
Do you think you might be a competitor with some of the events that go on at the fairgrounds?
I don't want to compete with them. I'm a rising tide kind of guy. I think there's space for all of us. But what we have is an outdoor amphitheater. And I think that's a missing piece from our kind of community assets, is to have that outdoor amphitheater. And right now, the closest we've got is Thunder Ridge and Branson. And also, though, what I'll say is the acts that they're already bringing in, I don't think we can have those scale of acts yet. I hope we grow to it. But I think that there's space for both because of location, because of timing. They're going to have their ability to have more than we will because, as you mentioned, we have 2 baseball teams playing there.
Well, at the end of the day, though, you're first and foremost a baseball venue.
Always. Always.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about what fans can expect this year. What are the changes? What are the new things that you're going to put in place?
Fun. I'll start there.
Well, for one thing, parking's gone down.
Yes, parking, half price. But that was a big change when the city bought it, is that it was like, we can stabilize parking. And we knew that the parking hurt us, but I don't think we realized how bad until last year. But one of the big pushes we've made over the last 2 years is hospitality. And just as an industry, you're seeing how important it is for suites. You're seeing how important it is for company outings, for client events. And so really we've invested a lot the last 2 years into making our hospitality products better and simpler to buy. And it's one of the things, as much as I juggle and my mind goes everywhere, there's beauty in simplicity. And when you can make it easy for people to buy, then they don't feel bad about which option they did. So we've really worked a lot on our hospitality. This year, one of the things I am excited about is that our first base bar, we're turning really into kind of a local and regional craft bar.
Oh, really?
And I think that, I think it's going to be great for customers and for fans, and to be able to walk up and grab something from 4x4, Springfield Brewing Company.
Right.
There's some stuff, log boats out of Columbia. We've got some out of Kansas, Ozark Beer Company that's coming up from Arkansas. So really, I think it's going to be a fun presence because it is about hospitality, and you're really seeing consumers have changed to where they want what they like or they won't buy. So really, my job is to make sure I'm providing the options for them to make it easy. So we've worked really hard on our catering packages, really hard on our suite packages, on our company picnics. This year, I think the beer is going to be really easy and fun for people. Last year, our birthday parties, we went up 588% in kids' birthday parties in 1 year.
Golly, wow.
The only change, and we realized for parents, because again, I've got kids that are 8 and 5, and booking those birthday parties can be stressful, and too many options is overwhelming, and if you can't find it online, you don't really want to have to call. And so we've spent a lot of time trying to figure that out for the customer base. I think the other big thing you'll see this year is that it's our 20th year, and we want to be able to have highlights to remind people of what's happened over the last 20. And I think it's a reflection of the last 20, but also looking ahead. And I feel like the concert with Adam Wainwright is looking ahead. I feel like talking about how to add in a new kids area is looking ahead. How to have our indoor training facility have year-round rentals and kids hitting in batting cages all the time. I think all of those things are part of the not just what happened the last 20, but how do we build towards the next 20.
I understand you've got some pretty exciting players this year. You want to tell us about 2 or 3 of them?
When I saw our roster, my eyes popped because I don't think I have ever seen as good a starting pitching. All 5 of our starting pitchers are ranked as top 30 prospects. Tink Hence.
Some first-round draft choices.
Oh,
right?
Yes. And I think that's, usually you get 1 or 2 of those guys on your rotation, but to have 5 starters in your top 30 prospects, I've never seen it in 20 years. The only thing I'm worried about, though, is if they pitch too good and too fast, that slows down beer sales. So I might have to
now you have
slow
the
them
pitch
down.
clock, too.
The pitch clock's been a great
Talk about
asset.
that for a second.
Yeah, when the pitch clock came in, I think there were definitely people worried about what does this mean? Are the games going to go too fast? Are people not going to eat and drink? And I think it's just the opposite, is now the games don't drag. And it lets people stay for the entire game as opposed to leaving at a certain time.
Yeah.
So I think for us, it's really changed that people are going to arrive a little bit earlier, but the pace of the game is so much better. I mean, when you can shave off, I think they say it's 27 minutes. If you take 27 minutes of dead air,
yeah.
And really, think of this interview is that if we took this entire interview and we decided to stop, for 15 seconds between thoughts, it's just dead air that doesn't help anybody. People want to keep it going. They want to keep it moving, and that's when they're entertained. And I think that's what baseball has seen is that fans are more entertained because there's not that slow dead time in the middle.
Talk a little bit about, there's fans have a choice where they spend their entertainment dollar. Who do you see as your competitors?
It's a great question because baseball fans are going to show up because it's baseball no matter what. But when you start looking at when we play, what I view as competition is a movie theater because it's about the same time as a baseball game. I view our competition as a bowling alley because people are going to go and they can spend about the same amount of time. So it's not another baseball team in the market, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But I do think some of our big competition is just the entertainment that lasts about the same time. So bowling alleys, movie theaters, that's our biggest competition. And the way people stream, I guess you got to say streaming too, is that if they're going to stay at home and binge things, right. We've got to convince them to come out. And I think overall...
And you got to make it easy.
and fun. And
Yeah.
because if it's not fun, they won't come back. And I do think that we're in an experiential atmosphere, and it's an experience. And as much as people do go digital and they look at other things, they still need those moments of experience. And I think that's what we offer. And as fast-paced as things can be, there's still something about relaxing at a baseball game with friends or family. And I think even as people move fast, I think you're always willing to be a part of an experience. And that's one of the biggest challenges of my job, is to make sure that it's consistent so that you know you're going to get a good product, but it's different so that you kind of smirk or laugh so that it wasn't the exact same experience as last time. And we spend a lot of time for that reason working on our between inning entertainment, because it kind of has that wild card of being a little something different every game. But we also spend a lot of time building out our promotional calendar. And
what about your average? What was your average attendance last year?
A little bit below 4,000.
And what's your goal for this year, if you don't mind sharing that?
Yeah, I'd love to be at 4,200. I mean,
Okay.
I think that's a reasonable goal. But that's really on our staff. I mean, we've got to prove to people that we're worth the value, we're worth the excitement. We try to be as smart as we can on how to stack days versus separate days. In the last few years, we've learned a lot about buying behavior, and we pay attention to things. How does the time of year and the game time affect the shade? And depending
that's a big deal.
Right. And depending on where the shade is, how long are they willing to stay? So we have been trying to alter our game times because of the pitch clock, because of the shade, but also because of the time of the year. And really, we divide our calendar between school in session, summer, and back to school, because there's really 3 different time periods that people are looking to go to games. So it really, as I talk about the juggling and organized chaos, putting together our promotional schedule and game times is absolutely a part of that.
It's a lot more than a 40-hour week in the summer, isn't it?
It is a lot more than that, but it's a job of passion. And
Yeah.
I can't say enough great things about our staff, because that's the link between all of us, is that we're passionate about what we do. We love what we do, and we want to make sure that when we do it, it's to the best of our ability. And I think every person that works there, full-time, part-time, we take pride in a good fan experience, and it links us. And even if you don't know them or you disagree with them, you know that you got a common ground. And a lot of times it just makes it so much easier when you're a part of a team.
We're about at the end of our time, Dan. Is there anything that I haven't asked you want to tell our listeners?
Just come to a ball game. I feel like sometimes, people, how do you help? What's going on? The biggest thing I'd encourage everyone, just come out to a game. It doesn't matter if by yourself, one friend, your whole family, whatever it is. Give us the chance to be a part of your summer entertainment. When we can become a tradition, traditions turn into habits, and if your habit is having fun, it's good for your health.
Dan, thank you for being today's guest on In Our Town.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for this week, and many thanks for listening. If you'd like to listen to other episodes, you can visit the Springfield Daily Citizen website at sgfcitizen.org/In Our Town, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.